Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Joel Rosen and I want to welcome you back to lesson number 5 on understanding MTHFR and methylation. We're going to actually start to get into the pathways now, so this is really exciting. We've built you up, you understand what methylation is about. It's about creating CH3 groups, about building things, about breaking things down, how stress is related. The more stressed we are, the more exposes our weaknesses to be able to produce energy. If we're not methylating very well, it turns on the expression of genes, so we have autoimmunities and fatigue and not being able to form neurotransmitters or hormones. So it really depends on the history, on talking to the patient, where just because you have more gene SNPs doesn't necessarily mean you have more problems, or just because you have less gene SNPs you have less problems. So the analogy I like to use is think about genetics as the gun and think about epigenetics as the trigger. So just because you have a gun that's loaded doesn't mean you'll ever have to press the trigger. So that's what will happen is patients will see me, they're 40 years old and they have all of these genetic weak links and they say, well, why do I have this problem now? Did I just get these genes? No, you've had that loaded gun for a long time. But it was the cumulative stress of life experiences, or the one really bad infection, or the bad trauma or inflammation that really sort of caused the expression or pulled the trigger. So that's really an important lesson. The gun is the trigger, and epigenetics the genetics is the gun, and the epigenetics is the trigger. And somehow the perfect storm happened where you had the loaded gun, you pulled the trigger, and so it really the program that we designed has to focus around both. You can never really put together a new gun. Like, you're going to always have 2 lanes of highway or 4 lanes of highway for that gene problem that you have, but you can understand the biochemistry like the drug companies did, and they block the action. What we can do is we can actually enhance the action so that roadblock isn't relevant. Or we can give you cofactors so that you're able to get through that roadblock. Or we can give you the end product so that you can get through that cofactor as well. So that's really, really important for you to understand. The other thing I'd like to understand is the pathways. So we have 4 major pathways. We have the folic cycle, we have the methylation cycle, we have the transsulfuration cycle, and we have the biopterin cycle. So those are 4 major cycles that we are going to be talking about and how they relate to you, because that's really important. A lot of the times I don't even need to do a genetic test, and I can say, okay, tell me about your life, tell me what foods you eat, tell me about your main problems, tell me about your stressors, and I can get an idea as to, oh, you're probably, if you're anxious and you have focus and concentration and you're not sleeping and you have hormonal problems, you're probably in this biopterin cycle, which is way downstream from all of these things here. Or if you have gray hair, you have joint pains, you can't detoxify, you have a viral load, you're probably in this cycle over here. If you have energy problems and you're just crashing in the middle of the day, you're probably in these 2 cycles. The reality is you're probably in all of these cycles somewhat, but what happens is a lot of the times a doctor that doesn't understand genetics will just say, hey, what I want you to do is take methylfolate. How many of you have heard that? Just take methylfolate and it's a magic wand, you'll feel better. The analogy I use is that's like closing your eyes and trying to hit the dartboard. Sometimes you're going to hit it. Most of the time you're not. And so patients that do really well on methylfolate, they don't have a lot of blockages in other places. Whereas patients that do have a lot of blockages in other places, they may take folate, and they do terrible. Or they do folate and they feel really good, and then all of a sudden they feel terrible. If that's you, it's because you have way other blockages in other places that aren't being addressed. So this is a short lesson because we're going to get into the folic acid cycle and to explain the very first step in our next lesson. I look forward to helping you in understanding MTHFR and methylation and helping you with your chronic health problem. My name is Dr. Joel Rosen, and we'll talk to you soon.